get straight into our big interview of the day. Joining me in studio is Mr. Michael Mubea, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Deputy CEO. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Right, and I want us to begin by focusing on the annual report, which I have here in my hands. Let's talk about some of the highlights that stood out in the executive summary in that same report. You state that you received about 8,044 complaints, and of those complaints, you finalized 143 files on corruption and economic crimes, submitted them to the office of the DPP, they go to the courts, but as of the time when you prepared this report, you only had 18 convictions. If you do the math, that's roughly 12% conviction rate. If you think of it like an exam, you could say that you scored 12%, and yet in this same report, you say that it was a successful year for the Commission. In what way, Mr. Mubea, was it a successful year for the Commission?
Thank you so much, Mr. Wahiga, for the opportunity to come and share with you the work of the Commission, and more specifically, our achievements as we captured this in our annual report. Let me begin by first and foremost explaining the processes that are involved in our work, because many times I find people don't understand really what we do.
Okay, briefly, please. Go ahead.
We do receive reports from the public, and these reports are analyzed. Some are relevant, others are not relevant. The ones that are relevant, they are subjected to investigations. The ones that are not relevant, we identify the relevant agencies and we channel them.
So the 8,044, there are some in which you identified relevant agencies and handed them over.
Yes.
Okay, carry on.
The ones that we commence investigations. Investigation is a process. And this is where we end up in sometimes the closure of the investigation, or sometimes the recommendation to have some people charged in a particular investigation. So in this particular year, we had 8,000 reports. Out of that, like you have rightly said, and as we have rightly captured in our report, there are those ones we subjected to investigation. Now, one thing I must say is that the cases you are finding concluded do not relate to this particular period, because the moment you investigate and arraign people in court, the judicial process takes time.
Okay, so and we'll be talking about the judicial process as well. So these are cases that may have been worked on in previous years.
Yes.
So then define for me success then. What gives EACC the grounds to say that this was a successful year for the EACC when Kenyans, and if you listened to the vetting of CS nominees last week, several members of parliament said that corruption is a pandemic in this country. It is getting out of hand. The body that's supposed to handle it is saying it's been a successful year. Again, explain to us how, from the data you have, that you could then conclude that it's been a successful year.
From the data I have, 22 cases were concluded. Out of the 22, 17 resulted in convictions. That amounts to about 75% conviction rate. That in itself is success.
So, okay, 75% conviction rate of the cases that were had and went to conclusion.
Yes. So that in itself is success.
And okay, that's how you're defining it.
That's how we look at it. So number two, I also want to go further and say, the work of the Commission, we go into tracing of stolen assets. Out of during the year, we had we recovered, like you rightly said, 259 million.
Out of a possible.
The 57 billion, I don't know where you are getting it from. But out of that, we also were able to preserve assets of 1.4 billion during the same period.
Okay.
Disruptions is one thing that people...
To those who could have stolen, potentially.
Okay. Those ones were 6.1 billion. So in total, we are talking about the success of 7.8 billion Kenya shillings. That actually is money that ought to have been, or would have been stolen, but was not stolen, money that was stolen and recovered. That is 7.8 billion. And that's why we are saying this is good success.
Okay, fair enough. I'll leave you on that particular point. But let's continue focusing on the same report. You stated that you recovered assets worth 257 million. You said out of what? 7.8 billion, potentially.
The total recoveries.
But, okay, so part of the report that says a figure of about 57.1 billion, that you say that's not in your report?
It's not in our report.
Okay, I mean, on that same note then, in terms of what you recovered versus what we put into EACC, do you feel that Kenyans get value?
Our budget is 2.9 billion per year.
Yes.
What we recovered was 7.8 billion Kenya shillings. Surely, Mr. Higa, you commended the Commission for doing a good job, because it's not only recovered more than what we were given, But also, let me go further and say this. The work of the Commission is not so much about investigations and recoveries. There is also public education and awareness. There is a sensitization of the public. Because when you're talking about corruption, and EACC is being blamed, EACC, you are not fighting corruption. Corruption, as you said, and I admit, is actually a challenge in our nation.
It wasn't even me who said it. It was parliamentarians.
Yes,
it was our leaders.
Yes, I agree. We are not in dispute with that. This corruption permeates every sector. You go to the private sector, there is corruption. You go to the government sector, there is corruption. You go to the media, there is corruption. And therefore, this corruption needs a holistic approach to fight it. And this is what we are doing as part of our strategy, that we need to enlist more bodies. We needed to have everybody involved in the fight against corruption. Because if you say that EACC is the one to fight corruption successively, I think we are not understanding the magnitude and the weight of the challenge that is before us. But it is the job that Kenyans have given you, because Kenyans do not have the time, all 44 million of us, to sit and follow corruption. It is so we have then empowered your body, and Parliament even put an act in place, the Ethics and EACC Act, for you to have that. So I know, and we've hosted representatives from EACC before on this same desk. They say that Kenyans should fight corruption together, but then we are also asking ourselves, finally, we gave EACC the power to do so. And so, again, I'm passing the back to you to ask, then why are we still here? If you say that you have a successful conviction rate, why are we having discussions like the one that we had last week in Parliament at County Hall? Let's begin on this premise. We must admit there is a challenge the country is facing of corruption. It's a challenge for our nation. And I said, and I won't repeat myself, that it permeates every sector. Let me give you an example. We all go to the doctors to see the doctor when we are unwell. But that does not mean you live a careless life because there is a doctor out there. And whenever you are sick, you blame the doctor. No. So we are saying that the Commission is charged with the responsibility of fighting corruption in our country. And by the way, remember our act, part of what we do is to enlist the support of the public and the private sector in the fight against corruption, so that holistically we are able to deal with the issue of corruption in our country. So when I'm saying that we were able to have, we recorded good progress, or our performance was successful, really, we are coming from that premise. That's where you're basically, okay, and we'll come back to this in just a bit. Let's talk about your mode of operation. If you go online and Google EACC arrests, these are some of the stories that you'll get, okay? 4 days ago, your team arrested 3 police officers for soliciting and receiving bribes. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Yes. In December, you arrested 2 judicial officers for allegedly soliciting a bribe of 25,000 Kenya shillings from a litigant as well. Now, the only high-profile suspect that your team has arrested in the recent past, according to a random internet search, this is not scientific data, is Hassan Noor, a former devolution ministry official. How does EACC decide who gets arrested and who doesn't? The arrest is based on investigation, is based on evidence. That is the basis of arrest. Number 2, and so when University of Nairobi releases proof that individual X, a governor, did not go to that particular university, are you then supposed to arrest that person? How does that work? We investigate. You see, there are allegations. Okay. Mr. Wahiga, go ahead. You can come and tell us, so and so, Mr. Wahiga doesn't have a degree. That is an allegation we have received. But we have to set in motion a process of actually confirming that indeed Mr. Wahiga has no degree. Can I give you examples? Can I give you examples of real-life cases? Then you explain to me. Let's talk about University of Nairobi. They clarified this week, last week, they've disowned Garissa Governor Ali Korane's Master of Business Administration degree that the politician used to get clearance to run for public office. Last year, the same university deregistered Meru Senator Mithika Linturi as a law student for allegedly presenting fake papers. In September last year, Kenyatta University said there were no records to indicate that Taita Taveta Governor Grantun Saboja was a student at that same institution. If it's the university that these people were supposed to have gone through, that deregister or acknowledge that these people were not in this university, are those allegations? Or is that proof that EACC can then act on? There are allegations, and we have to go back to the universities and actually get their statements and the evidence in support of the fact that these particular persons never went to those universities. Did you go back for your information? Okay, go ahead. Tell me where we are. Those are matters that are under investigation. So who gets again back? So, Mr. Ika, allow me to finish. When we investigate, we conclude. we forward our files to the DPP with very clear recommendations. And I want to tell you, on the issue of fake certificates, we have charged quite a number of people. The others, even some of the people you are mentioning, there are constitutional petitions in court for removal of those particular persons from office. I don't know whether you are aware of this. So there are many investigations that are going on. Now when you say that, maybe, and I want to respond because I keep hearing this about we are only arresting the police officers.
We get media alerts, crack down EACC officials, but we are waiting for that big media alert.
On what? On
a bigger official.
Now,
so-called big fish.
Let me jog your memory. How many ministers actually took plea just not so long ago, being charged in court? How many governors have actually taken plea in court, and their matters are in court? Have you forgotten that? So we have many ministers charged, serving ministers charged in a court of law, serving governors being charged in a court of law. Now, are you saying that we are not doing our job?
We are not
doing our job.
That,
I also want to say this, and I'm glad you have talked about the incident where we arrested various police officers. Let me tell you, corruption in the traffic sector is worrying. It is big. It is serious. When we talk about statistics of about almost 3,000 people dying on the roads, it is worrying. You and I are not safe on the roads. Why? Because of corruption that is in the road sector. And that's why we are focused a lot on the police. I'll give you an example. Just not so long ago, 2 years ago, we had to preserve assets, cash actually, of a police officer who had 30 million Kenya shillings in the bank account. A rider. You and I are on better salaries, but you don't have that million. You don't have that million in the account.
The whole point.
Another point. Allow me to say this. After that arrest, now we have received so many reports from the public urging us, can you please now come to our area? These policemen are too much. Matatu owners, they are coming to us and saying, please help us. Our industry is collapsing. It's a big industry. It's collapsing because of corruption that is there. So when we are intervening, what we need is support, not like saying this is petty corruption. It is not petty corruption. I'll also go further. Petty. Let me tell you, because from where I sit, I have a lot of information. There are some police officers who are looking at the M-Pesa transactions. You won't believe it. One of them, within a period of 3 months, had transacted M-Pesa transactions of about 3.4 million Kenya shillings. Another one, within 8 months, had 7.8 million Kenya shillings. My friend, this industry is bad. Okay. You have to intervene.
Okay, fair enough. I want to bring you, so again, let me ask, for the benefit of the public who's watching and seeking to understand, at what point did you decide that these police officers should be arrested? At what point did you decide that these judicial officers should be arrested? At what point did you decide, or have you said that for cases of fake certificates, for the 3 individuals I mentioned, for example, that it is only up until this point that the EACC would consider formally arresting them? Just explain to us how EACC operates. I know you began, but we didn't quite finish it, so that there's clarity about this. Because again, the public says, listen, when you're a police officer, when you're a judicial officer, you're fair game. EACC have no problem arresting you. Their media team alerts the media, and we see it on TV very clearly, you know, for all to see. But on these other matters, as soon as the announcement is made, silence. Silence after that. We hear of a case in court later on. So walk me through the procedure very clearly for the benefit of understanding.
Okay. I commence from, I continue from where I stopped, and I said that after we investigate, we forward our files to the DPP with very clear recommendations. For example, to charge. Now, the moment the DPP evaluates the evidence and he actually agrees, and the concurrence rate with our office and the DPP is about 99%, then we arrest that particular person.
He gives you the go-ahead?
He gives us the go-ahead.
Okay. So for the police officers, for the judicial officers, you had the go-ahead.
You wait for me to explain.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Now, that is on forensic investigations, like, for example, issues of to do with the degree certificate and all that. On the issue of police officers, we have a different approach. We cannot, even now, myself walking on the driving on the road or walking and I see a police officer collecting cash, I cannot arrest. We do what we call undercover surveillance. Like, we have received a report on a particular area, we put undercover officers,
an undercover team,
officers to go and record video, to record or collect evidence that these particular officers are actually involved in collection of bribes or soliciting from matatu operators or the public users. Now, the moment this information comes, the surveillance reports come, we're able to analyze, and then it is only then we now sanction, yes, we can go ahead and arrest. And after arresting, we liaise with the DPP for concurrent so that we can now take the fellows to court. That is, in a nutshell, that's what happens.
In a nutshell, that's what happens.
Yeah.
So for the matters that I've mentioned and for others, and again for the perception of Kenyans, because let me read you an SMS from a Kenyan. He says that, why can't you go for the big fish? Exactly what you said, that you're only running, you don't give us your name, you're only following petty corruption. Is it the system that is the problem? Is it the procedures that are the problem? What do you see as the solution to what I'm sure you get as queries every day from Kenyans?
I wanted to be on camera this morning and say this. Who is Big Fish? I have said, and I want to repeat here, we have arrested and charged serving cabinet ministers in the court of law. We have arrested and charged sitting governors in the court of law. Those are high profile.
When you say arrested, one gets a feeling that these individuals you've mentioned are invited to appear before the EACC, while the police officers do not get the honor of being invited. They are swooped on in front of the cameras. But for others, for individuals of high standing, go ahead.
Mr. Higa, understand this. A police officer is out there collecting bribes. A gentleman like this has gone and faked degree certificates.
For example?
For example, okay. And there are many, but for information, there are many. So that will require you get this fake document, go to the university, record a statement, or get the evidence that this fellow never came to a university. The others even who are coming with foreign degree certificates, you have actually to go out there and collect the evidence. So what I'm saying is that the parameters and the involvement of the process is different. One is just collecting cash, so it is much easier. He's collecting it out there in the public. These reports of these people without degree certificates came through people. I don't know, it was a complaint that came, and there are many of them. I must say, I don't want to specifically deal with those cases because I know where they are as we speak, and people can.
Where are they?
They are very advanced. Very advanced.
Are there any that you've handed over to the the DPP, or they are still within your?
Some of them, yes.
When will we get the status?
As soon as we have a DPP.
Legal minds. If you talk to them about the EACC, they say that your Achilles heel is in your investigation department. We've had your CEO here a couple of months back, and again, and the president even said this 2 years ago, passing the buck, that he asked what's happening with one side, he's told the other side is the one that's not working, etc. And we've had the EACC many times. In December, your chairperson spoke about witness interference, but your team has also many times talked about the legal system, that you investigate, that you prepare evidence, that you hand over to the courts, and then matters are bogged there. Court orders cause interference, and matters stop there. But legal minds are saying, wait a minute, before the EACC passes the buck to others, could there be an issue in your investigation department? Let me talk about scenarios here, that it is possible that cases are, that the weak point is at that investigation level. It's no secret that you're short-staffed. You've explained it before. In this report, you've talked about that you don't have budget, that you don't have adequate staff. You you work closely with the police service to help you with the investigations, because technically you don't train investigators internally to do that. And that brings about a question of whether the police answer to you or to the National Police Service. Your legal team clearly must be overwhelmed. 8,044 complaints. That's almost 800 complaints a month if you break it down for the last financial year. Is this what's going on at the Commission? That there is just too much happening, and so one even wonders that the cases that finally get to a prosecution level, what kind of process have they gone through with that kind of a setup? Or have I misrepresented what the Commission is going through at this moment?
I think you have mixed up several facts. One, let me put it this way. In terms of the quality of the investigations, it's good. And that's why we are talking about...
That's your assessment.
Even the figures support that. That's why I'm talking about conviction rate of 75%. That is good.
And yet,
number two,
okay, finish.
When it comes to the pace of investigations, yes, the workload is heavy. The workload is heavier than the capacity. That I must admit, and we have said it here. We are now about 670 staff. I'll give you an example of Hong Kong. Hong Kong anti-corruption body gets a budget of about 13 billion per year. The workforce is 1,500 people. The population of Hong Kong is 7 million people. Come to Kenya. Our population is 45 million people. We are 670 people. The budget is 2.9 billion, or round it up to 3 billion Kenya shillings. You can see the mismatch. But I want to emphasize this point, that fighting corruption is not the exclusive work of EACC. It will involve all of us. Because
but you are the leader.
School, we are the leader.
You're the leader.
Mobilize. And we are not abandoning that responsibility. It is us to lead in the fight against corruption. But we are saying that all of us as a country must actually make a very conscious decision that we need to fight graft. I'll tell you of a case where I went to talk to some parents in a school, because we even reach out to the schools through what we call integrity clubs, where we are teaching the young minds about what is integrity and what is it that they needed to do. And the parents were like, this is a very good talk. Can you also come and talk to us as parents so that we actually know how we are going to manage this? So there is an aspect of everybody believing that is on the EACC. When it comes to even parenting, EACC come and help us. When it is corruption, EACC come and help us. Okay. The media sector, we have also received reports on the media sector, and yet there is actually a body that regulates the way media works. So what I'm saying in a nutshell is this: as a country, let us abandon the blame game and let us go into the actual work of improving our processes and making sure that actually the way we are doing it is the right way. I'll tell you this. Allow me to just add one more point.
Go ahead.
You have talked about the legal process. Legal process, particularly when it comes to the judicial process, is slow, and it's not just in Kenya. Worldwide, judicial process is slow. If you have ever sued as a personal level, if you have ever taken your matter to court, you would be agreeing with me that the process is actually slow. So EACC is not unique in this area, in suffering that. But what we have done is this. We mobilized the former Chief Justice. We lobbied very seriously for a special court. Today, we have a high court sitting in Nairobi that handles exclusively the work of the commission. And as a result of this intervention, there were very many constitutional petitions that were being filed by the suspects who are loaded. And this would delay the hearing and the conclusion of their criminal matters. But with the emergence of this court, these constitutional petitions are now being dispensed with very, very quickly.
Therefore, yes.
That is why we were able, and I want to emphasize this point, that's why we were able to conclude 22 cases in 1 year. Otherwise, before that, it was worse, because our constitution, these constitutional petitions would be filed, and they would have to queue like the others. Now we are lobbying.
So you are not. So you're not overwhelmed, even though your report says budget, staff being poached by other companies. You're not overwhelmed.
I said this. The workload is heavier than the capacity.
And it does not affect the quality of work that goes to the courts.
That does not affect the quality. What happens
what guarantees can you give us?
What happens is this. Because we are so conscious of quality, people complain now our investigations are taking too long. Why? Because all these allegations have to queue, and the process has to be thorough. The way we do our investigations is that after the investigations are done, there is another legal department that analyzes the evidence as collected by the investigator before the file is formally tabled before the commission for transmission to the DPP. All these checks and balances are in place, occasioning what and I will admit, what people complain about, delayed investigations.
Okay. Deputy CEO, I want to bring two examples to you of what's happening in other parts of the world. You spoke about Kenyans needing to work together to fight corruption, fair enough, but I've reminded you that you're the leader in all this. That's why we gave you the powers and the budget to do so. You also spoke about delayed justice systems. Let's start with what's happening in Guatemala today. They've detained their former president. They've arrested ministers, arrested and put, like, you know, they're not able to move. We see pictures of them with police officers in handcuffs. Let me read you the story. Former Guatemalan President Alvaro Colom, former finance minister, who's now the chairman of Oxfam International, they were arrested. They are in jail as we speak. It's part of a local corruption investigation. That's one example of you asked me what are big fish. I'm trying to answer your question now. Let's look at the next one. Israeli police are recommending the indicting of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. on bribery charges in 2 criminal investigations. Of course, he has come out, he's denied, he's called the allegations baseless, vowed to remain in office. I'm not saying that that's what should happen here. I'm not telling you go and arrest someone, just like that. But what will it take to get action of that nature? That is what Kenyans are asking you here today. Those are the messages that we are getting on 22422. They have no problem with you dealing with police officers, with you dealing with judicial officers. But they are saying when you see Israeli police empowered to be able to actually publicly come out and say that they are indicting the prime minister, when you see Guatemalan officials, the same thing with a leader of the caliber of a former president, Kenyans are wondering if EACC cannot get the power or show us that that is possible, then what are they doing in office? How would you respond to that?
Mr. Higa, I don't know. We have arrested, I say, we have arrested the cabinet ministers, sitting cabinet ministers. We have arrested governors. Now, are you suggesting, allow me to ask you this.
What do you mean by arrested?
Okay. Charged in court. You are aware? Ministers were charged in 2015. And the matters are in court. Governors, sitting governors, their matters are in court. Sitting from their offices, are taken to court. Unless you have forgotten.
No, I haven't.
So
it's just the one arrested, which brings about a perception.
Charged.
Charged. That's where I need a clarification.
Charged in court. You remember?
Why were they not arrested? If you had,
they were arrested and taken to court.
Voluntarily.
Number 2,
okay, go ahead.
There is nothing like a voluntarily. There is nothing like voluntary. When you are arrested, you are under arrest. That's what it means. It's not like you are invited, come, and then you take a cup of tea, and then from there you walk to court. You are actually arrested, put in a vehicle, taken to court. Now, I also wanted to maybe jog your memory on this. We have the 2010 Constitution with a huge Bill of Rights, whereby even people, when they are arrested, they are entitled to bail. It's not about arresting somebody and locking somebody in a committee. If it was as easy as that, that would have happened. But now we have a constitution. Fundamental rights have to be respected. Therefore, even when you arrest a person, the people are taken to court, they are actually given bail. And they litigate, or they go through the criminal trial while in their
still free and operating.
While still free, but not in office. Because what also happens is that the moment you are charged in court, our law is such that you must be suspended from office.
A lot of them block those charges in court.
Yes, they got to court. I must say that we have serious, some of the orders actually issued in court is a big challenge, because we have even been given or served with orders stopping investigations. Don't investigate, so and so. A court order comes. By the time you fight that order through the court process, so much time has passed. And then the public out there is saying, EACC, you are not doing your job. But there are these other players that we must talk about. There are specific cases, I can tell you. And there is not one, it's not two.
On Monday we had Machakos Governor Dr. Alfred Mutua, and I asked him point blank,
yes,
EACC have been trying to charge you. You've taken out court orders. The matter is before the Court of Appeal. He said that your case has been instigated by those who are against his leadership, against his way of operation, and thus he sees no need, and again, but of course the matter is still in court. We won't talk about that. But one then gets a feeling that there is a futility in your operations. If what you're telling us is true, that you have a dedicated legal team, that you have professionals who are working behind the scenes to investigate, and these matters go to court and they are blocked there, and that's pretty much all we'll hear about our leaders. They'll serve their terms, they'll finish and move on to other affairs, then what are we doing here? Now,
I think let's not, let's be honest in this. There are people we have charged in court. Their cases are actually in court. What did they do? They went and contested for political positions. And the Kenyans elected them. They are now in parliament. How do you explain this, Mr. Wahiga?
It is possible that they trusted that since they passed through your hands and IBC and
they were charged. What more can we, EACC, do? We have charged people. Their cases are in court. They have been elected. Now they're in parliament or whichever the office. So what we are saying is this. As much as we engage in this conversation of saying EACC you can do, and I admit we have to do it, but Kenyans, we must reflect. What kind of a leadership really do we want as a country? Because if you are telling me that this suspect is now no longer a suspect because he is actually a charged person, should be sit in those high offices, what is the message you are giving out there?
Okay.
We have had cases where we have actually invited, at this time invited people to come and record statements. And what happens? They come with a team. So Koti dancers, escorting them and saying, this is, even if he's a thief, he is our thief. I mean, I think we must also engage in this conversation, Mr. Higa. Let's be honest and say,
you want
yes,
Kenyans to have a moment of reflection, but Kenyans say EACC should have that moment of reflection. Some have said that the EACC no longer makes sense. It's time to have an honest conversation about EACC. The EACC experiment is not working. How do you respond to those who would say that?
I think they are not, it's out of ignorance. They don't understand the work we do, the successes as we have captured in this report. It has a lot of information of the successes and even the challenges that we are talking about. And we don't say that because like now we have had crime going up. We say that now we no longer need the police because crime is too much. What would happen in our country? Today you have to be very careful when you're walking in the streets or wherever it is because of the insecurity. Do we say disband the police? We can't do that.
Last year, a report issued ranked Kenya 145th out of 176 countries, Transparency International Corruption Index. 2016, Kenya ranked third most corrupt country in the world. That is according to PricewaterhouseCoopers. In your report, you've stated an increase in corruption in the 47 counties. Surely this situation, and again, I'm not taking away the fact that you've said convictions, those on paper, we can get the evidence on in TV, you know, everywhere, you know, it is available, but this is getting out of hand. I don't know what the latest figures are. I'm almost afraid we've come out of a political year where, you know, and you know what happens during a political year as well. Where are we headed to, DCO?
Now, let me point out to, or maybe bring your attention to things. One, when it comes to corruption perception, we talk about perception. It's a perception. There are two things. We have corruption, perception, and also we have corruption. Those are two different things. Perception always is very high, particularly in a political year, where corruption is used also as a political term, maybe for campaigns and all that. So people get to think there is a lot of corruption. But I'm not saying that there is no corruption. Corruption has increased. But the perception tends to be very, very high, such that even sometimes you find people like almost giving up. But I'll tell you, one time I was hosting some people in my own house, and we were discussing the issue of corruption. And their view was corruption is too much in our country. And I decided just to conduct a short interview and ask them, by the way, you are saying corruption is very high. How many times have you bribed? How many times has a bribe been demanded from you? Do you know what was shocking? Out of all the people who were in my house, none was in that category of having been asked for a bribe or having paid a bribe. But if you walk out in the street... And you're
sure they gave you honest feedback?
I want to believe that.
Are they not afraid you might...
no, I want to believe that. They are my friends.
They're your friends,
even you, when we talk a cup of tea, you'll tell me what's happening. So out here, if you walk into the streets and ask any ordinary person, how is the corruption in Kenya? The immediate response will be, corruption in Kenya is too high. But interrogate the fellow further and ask, how many times have you paid a bribe? The answer will be, no, I've never paid a bribe. What I'm saying is this, that is perception. Perception tends to be quite high. But when it comes to increased corruption even in the counties, because that's a challenge that is we have also, one of our interventions is that we want to open more regional offices so that actually we draw the services closer to the people. We are lobbying Treasury for purposes of additional budget, so that we can improve or enhance our capacity and hasten the conclusion of our matters.
Okay, and that is what is happening. Okiya Omtata says that as an investigating body, that you are doing the wrong job. He says that investigating corruption should fall within the mandate of the police. He's taken this to the courts, and Parliament was wrong by giving you an extra mandate. He has taken you to court. He accuses your commission of acting beyond its jurisdiction and powers, altering the basic structures of the Constitution. He further says that, that Parliament gave you a free hand to become a crime-busting entity, and yet he says you have killed serious crime. He says scams such as NYS, loss of funds at Afya House have all happened under your watch. I know it's a matter in court, that there is a sensitivity in regards to that, but just your thoughts on the justification for what you do and how you partner with the police, because there are those who say unless the EACC is able to have its own internal structures to be able to carry out all this, then it will have to continuously rely on other bodies to do so.
Okay, Okiya Mtata, I'll not respond to him. That's a constitution petition that we are fighting in court. So there are those arguments that we are affronting in court. So there's no need of me responding to those issues which are in any event are before court. The way we partner with the police, we have what you call operations department. Operations department is what deals with like rapid response, you know, bribery and all that, because that requires like a sting operation, quick response. So that's where we partner with the police. But we also have forensic investigators. This, when it comes to forensic investigators, these are our own investigators who are trained. We have engineers, we have accountants, we have lawyers, we have all these category of people, professionals. They have been trained in the skills of investigation, and this is the team that we depend on for these very serious investigations. NYS, I don't, maybe unless somebody has forgotten, over 50 people are in court. 500 million of the properties have been preserved. Ministry of Health, investigations are concluded. We are waiting for the DPP to be in office. Then you'll be hearing more. But as of now, before the file is concluded with the DPP, I may not say much. Okay, even as we wrap up this discussion, last year, election year, do you have a report on the use of money in last year's election? We are now, what, 7-8 months past August 8th, especially when it comes to county governments, a national government using public resources for campaign. Do you have any report? Was that something that was in your purview last year? When it comes to campaigns, there are quite a number of agencies that are involved. We involve also the police, we involve the national cohesion, we involve ourselves, the NIS. It's a whole team of people that deal with the issue of the campaigns, because you are talking about almost 1,000 people contesting for various offices and all over the country, the 47 counties. We don't have the capacity to reach all of them, but there are a few cases that were picked on bribery, and those are matters that are being concluded. So there is some sort of follow-up with what happened in terms of the... There is. Okay, so Kenyans can rest assured that hopefully lessons were learned from what happened last year. Yeah. Okay, thank you then for that. But also, allow me to say this. Please. Like now you recall there is recruitment of the KDF, recruitment of the police and all that, which keeps taking place. And even at that time we are involved, because we normally like cover those activities. But one thing that shocks us, and this is why I'm saying that Kenyans, as much as on the one hand you are complaining, I think really you need to do something. We have arrested people coming with cash to bribe the recruiting teams. Cash, like I recall, I think last year, one came with 130,000 shillings in a brown bahasha. And on the hand is written, look at my brown envelope, I have added 100,000. So we have to be called to arrest. The matters are in court. But what I'm saying is this: why are Kenyans so eager to bribe? And then after you bribe, you go on the other hand and complain because there is corruption. They do not fear the consequences. It's possible. Again, I'm not answering on behalf of Kenyans, but failure to fear is no justification for you to be involved in crime, because bribery is or corruption is a crime. Do you feel that the EACC needs more teeth? I think EACC, as of now, what we need and what we are lobbying for is enhanced budget, so that we can improve or enhance our capacity, particularly in the areas of investigation and opening of more regional offices, so that we are able to deal quickly with the matters that we are handling. Could your image be improved through a change of strategy? Again, I've asked the questions that, and I've looked at Twitter as well, that you have talked about charging high-profile individuals, but Kenyans are saying we need to see them paraded in the same manner that we see low-level officials being paraded when it is proven, when you have, grounds that these people are doing. So do you think a change of strategy? The change of strategy that we are trying to bring on board is this. Kenyans are bloodthirsty, and that's why they are, even if I stayed here for another 1 hour, the conversation will still be the same, that we want high-profile people charged. That's the only way they believe you're working. That's what they believe. But I will tell you, prevention is better than cure. The people we are talking about, the high-profile people we are talking about, like I'll give you a very good example. They're in churches. On Sundays, they're in church giving hefty donations. What we are telling the clergy and the religious sector is this: why don't you partner with us? Corruption is sin in whichever the denominations. Why don't you also preach against corruption from the pulpit? We are talking about children. They say, for example, even admission of Form 1, there were issues. admissions to the university, sometimes you get these reports. Why can't Kenyans decide that you are going to change?
So what we
are saying is that we are taking the war seriously through law enforcement and preventive mechanism.
How would you rate yourself? Today's show is titled the EACC Scorecard. That's what's on our screen.
Yeah.
What do you give yourself as a rating as EACC?
I would say 7 to 10.
7 out of 10?
Yeah.
That's a B?
Yes.
And those who think differently?
They needed to understand our operations and processes better.
Okay. Thank you so much. Michael Mubea, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Deputy CEO. Thank you so much for finding time to be here with us on the program. You're watching Citizen Extra. Stay with us.